Beginning in the late fall of 2007, an economic phenomenon started occurring within the United States. Banks such as Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, and over 176 banks began to fail. And why, you ask? Well, to make it simple, these banks were loaning out money to any and everybody. Banks usually don't loan out money to just anybody, though, so why were over 176 banks doing it then? The housing market leading up to the recession was incredibly promising, and as the writers at economist.com said, low interest rates created an incentive for banks, hedge funds, and other investors to hunt for riskier assets that offered higher returns. They also made it profitable for such outfits to borrow and use the extra cash to amplify their investments on the assumption that the returns would exceed the cost of borrowing. But what did this mean for the average American? Well, the cost of taxpayers alone was $1.2 trillion according to Britannica.com, but even more importantly, the stock market fell with the housing market, and stocks fell as much as 57%, the worst downturn since the Great Depression, leaving millions of stock market investors broke. Unfortunately, as the U.S. economy began to fail as a world superpower, it brought with it the fall of many other economies around the world. The housing market acted as the finger that pushed forward a series of falls, much like the domino effect. What eventually pulled us out of the tragic downturn in the world economy? Well, while some can discuss the wrong ways of how the government handled the awful situation, many would argue that the U.S. did a good job working under the short time frame and high-pressure situation that required them to pick and choose which companies to bail out and which companies to unfortunately let fail.
Well, the government came in and made some stiff and hard regulations to lenders out there. So, as you know, the lenders were giving loans to people that really couldn't qualify for them. They were giving 100% loan to value loans. They were giving loans to people with less than good credit, with not necessarily good job history. So they were giving loans to people that shouldn't have gotten them, that didn't have the resources to pay them back. Then we started seeing the foreclosures happen and the short sales happen, and it was a mess. So now the government has put in rules and regulations, so the lenders have to go through a lot more to qualify a buyer and give the buyer a loan. It's really tough on the lenders these days to get the loans done, with good reason. It should be. And during the recession, the lenders used to be able to just order the appraisal from any appraiser. You know, they could have an appraiser in their office and order. So back then we felt that the appraisers were overinflating property values at that time. So
Another upside to this recession in comparison to the Great Depression was the existence of the FDIC. Unlike the Great Depression, the FDIC allowed for citizens of the U.S. not to lose their entire savings if they were members of the banks that failed. The recession wasn't officially over until June of 2009, and it wasn't until very recently that we have seen a housing market that appears to be normal again. This is great news for citizens who worked in real estate and housing construction and
We branched out to Brenda Bartoletti, a local realtor, and asked her about what her personal experience was. Questions such as, how did the crisis affect you personally in the company you work for? Also, what was your job during the recession? And how do we still see the effects of the recession today?
during the Great Recession, I was and still am a real estate agent. I have been a real estate agent with Caldwell Banker Residential Brokerage for 18 years. Am I still seeing the effects of it today? A little bit. The government is still modifying the rules and regulations for the industry, for the lending industry and the real estate industry. Foreclosures are way down, and I don't see very many short sales. You might see a short sale here and there, but primarily the area I work in is the Denver metro area, and I see a complete full recovery in the housing market, and I also see it's escalating, and it's got awesome, and Denver has one of the best real estate markets in the country. Actually, I think we are number one right now. Well, as I mentioned, I've been a real estate agent for 18 years, so I've seen the real estate market go up and down and be really great and obviously be really bad. So when the recession hit, 2008, 2009, it was devastating for the real estate business. We went through triple the numbers of houses on the market. They were staying on the market for record long periods of time. And, you know, say a house that, you know, typically would have gone for $250,000 was now going for $180,000, $200,000 because of the problems with the lending.